Hi guys, and welcome to another Rommel's Love Child video. Now it's been a while, in part because we've had Christmas and my graphics cards melted down. I think I fixed it. It seems to be working alright now after a bit of testing. So I'm just slowly introducing that and working that way up. But I wanted to, I've been playing a little bit since Christmas. I've been playing a bit of War Thunder, which is similar to World of Tanks in the way that you can control tanks, but a little bit differently. You've also got planes, and you've now got introduced, you've got the naval aspect of it. So if I click on Britain and go to Naval Arcade Battles, I don't know where it's disappeared to, but I've definitely got somewhere. There we go, a ship that I can play. So a little ship, and then we can move the way up. I keep looking at this HMS Dido and reading that as HMS Dildo. Maybe I've got a filthy mind. Maybe you agree. I don't know. Leave a comment. But War Thunder, you get the nations. You get USA, Germany, Russia, Soviet Union, Britain, Japan, Italy, and France. Some of those have got the Navy. They've all got the Air Force to a degree. So they've all got planes to a lesser great degree. You can see here the French have got three different rows, three different columns to advance through the different ranks. You compare that with Britain, for example. Britain has got many more different aircraft to search through, and it's the same for tanks. As for fleet, it is only the USA, Germany, USSR, and Britain that have a fleet. With the helicopters, because this is a new introduction recently, I've not played these yet. You've got the USA, you've got Germany, you've got the USSR, but no other nation has yet the helicopters. So that's another little interesting thing. I can't tell you anything about the helicopter battles, but on the tank battles, you start off with a reserve tank, which is your basic tank, and unlike in World of Tanks, you don't grind up different bits of equipment per se. You grind up improvements to it. So for example, you can upgrade your suspension so you don't bounce around so much. You can upgrade yourself to having the FPE equipment, fire prevention equipment, parts so you can repair your tank when you get damaged. The horizontal drive, for example, makes your turrets spin faster, and artillery support, crew replenishment, which you can use once. You can get an extra backup crew member in. That's nice to know. And you get these different things. So it means the tanks, unlike in World of Tanks with some tanks where you play them stock and you're completely uncompetitive, and it's a really frustrating experience in World of Tanks to actually play them. In War Thunder, it's not the case. The tank is fight capable straight away, and you don't need to worry about the fact that your gun is from 2 tiers below and can't penetrate a wet paper bag, let alone the enemy tank that's 2 tiers above you now. So that's an advantage. Another advantage that I quite like is your crews stay trained in a vehicle. For example, if we take this crew here, and just close this window. If we take this crew here in the M2A4, I can then send him into another tank. For example, the M2, he's already trained in that one, and it doesn't cost me anything to switch in between. Certainly not in gold. You can train them up with your silver lions, as they're called, the main currency. So you can train them up so they just slot into different tanks, and it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Your crew do gain experience, so as you go along, you can get these various different things. I'm not going to go into those yet about what they are, but they're various different qualifications that improve their efficiency. There are also 3 game modes, or well, 3 main game modes in War Thunder. Get your arcade battles, which are easier to play. You've got markers over your team, and you've got markers over the enemy. Plays very much like World of Tanks. Then you get your realistic battles. Now in realistic battles, you generally are playing on a team of historically accurate vehicles. So for example, the Germany and Japan and Italy, they will play together on a side, and then you'll have USA, Germany, Britain, France on another side. And the enemy tanks in realistic battles do not have markers above them, so you are literally relying on actually seeing the tank, and this is where camouflage can actually start to play a real advantage, especially you see some people have got bushes on the front of their tanks. So that makes it quite interesting. It's very, very different to World of Tanks. You've really got to rely on your wits, you've got to rely on your team. You can't just go charging forwards to the nearest choke point, because as well in realistic battles, people can, even a tank realistic battle, people can take a plane into that battle. They can fly around, they will bomb you, shoot you, and so it makes it a little bit more interesting. And then you get simulator battles. Now they're much like realistic battles, except you only get your commander's perspective. So in the plane, you're in the cockpit, and that's the only thing you can see. You can't see a third person mode. Furthermore, in simulator battles, piloting a plane, it becomes a lot more difficult to control the plane. So it's a steep learning curve on that one. And you get no markers above your team or the enemy team. So here you've really got to recognise tanks, and you'll see a lot of people at the beginning will stick shells into their own teammates because they see a tank and shoot without really thinking, oh, is that a Stug or is that an M3 Lee? And they don't take that time to consider it and shoot it, and so that makes it even more interesting. You've got to stop, you've got to decide whether the enemy tank or the tank that you can see is an enemy or is on your team. Then they do have a PvE mode, which is these tank arcade modes, the assault ones. You fight hordes of enemies there. You have to destroy them all in order to survive the battle. Personally, I really like War Thunder. The arcade mode's alright, it's kind of fast paced, it's a bit like World of Tanks, maybe not quite as good as the World of Tanks mode, because the tanks feel like they control a little bit skittishly, so they kind of swing around wildly when you're driving. But the realistic and the simulator battles give an extra edge. They're difficult to learn because one shot will take out your tank. Which is the same in an arcade battle as well. That's another difference. In World of Tanks, you have a certain amount of hit points. In War Thunder, you have your crew in here, and if a shell hits the crew and kills a crew member, then they're dead. Then if a shell hits and kills all of your crew members, so say, for example, if I have a look at the X-ray view on this tank here, you can see my crew. Got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. If a shell of a sufficiently high caliber, for example, was to hit here, and the spall or the shrapnel was to spread out and kill these 4 guys, my tank would be out of action. Also, if you get a fire, then that fire spreads and starts to damage, much like in World of Tanks. But it will kill your crew members, or they'll have to stop to put it out. Ammunition rack, again, that can explode. So it does make it quite good. Unlike in World of Tanks as well, if you get your transmission damaged, for example, your tank is stuck, your crew has to repair it, which is maybe a little bit unrealistic because it only takes about 30 or 40 seconds to repair it. However, it's not simple a case of bashing 5 and 5 to repair your engine and off you go again. So there are some differences there. Furthermore, in a tank like this one as well, you notice it's got machine guns there and there. You can actually use those, and I'll put on the top as well, you can actually use those in War Thunder. You've got multiple fire options. When it comes to the planes, much the same. You've got different ranks of planes. You've got your dive bombers, you've got your heavy fighters, your normal fighters, you've got torpedo bombers like the swordfish there, and so on and so forth. So you get a whole different range. With the tanks, you can get things like this here, the GAZ AAA, so anti-aircraft artillery. So it's got this 12.7mm machine gun, anti-aircraft machine gun mounted on the back of a truck. And as you can see, it's a wheeled vehicle, and so it drives like a car would. So you point it forwards, and you go, and then you steer. You also get the tank destroyers. We saw the Stug earlier on, and here we've got the Su-51. And again, they play much like you'd expect, with weaker armour up at the top, stronger armour down here perhaps. And so therefore different shell types can mean different capabilities. So we'll have a look in particular, go for the British actually, have a look at their tanks, and we'll talk a little bit about the shell types. So if I have a look at the Cromwell here, for example. Okay, so the types of shell that you can get is, firstly you get armour piercing, which is just a block of steel or block of hard dense metal, and that penetrates the armour, and then whatever it flies through it will kill. And it will also, as you can see, it's got this little damaging effect. What that is there is that's kind of spalling, the things it's going to break off the inside of the tank. Okay, unresearched is the armor-piercing capped ballistic capped shell. So the first capped means it's better at penetrating armor that's angled. The second ballistic capped means it flies faster. Okay, so you can see there, in theory anyway, 618 meters per second for the muzzle velocity, that's 619, but then hopefully this one will keep its speed going longer. High explosive, we know from World of Tanks, doesn't penetrate as well, but does more damage in War Thunder. This has a really great effect again against weaker targets. You can wipe out, say, a anti-aircraft artillery if it's in a truck. You hit the truck with the high explosive shell, the truck's dead, one shot, gone completely. And some of them also offer smoke. Okay, so there are no premium ammos in the War Thunder tanks. There are no premium ammos. You get different ammo types that you can select and you can use them, and they will offer you different capabilities in different settings. And this is quite a big importance. So if I have a look at the Panzer here, I've got a armor-piercing cap shell. I've also got APCR, and we can see the APCR does much better penetration. So at 0 degrees angled armor, at 10 meters, it's 118 millimeters of penetration compared to 74. And with the upgraded APCR, it goes up to 132. But this will just send a thin shard of metal through the tank with only a little spalling. So you've got to be really accurate with these to pick and kill your crew. So, although it can be frustrating and you can take a one-hit kill, I do recommend you have a go at War Thunder, and I think I can probably get a little code which I'll put in the description of the video, which will give you, when you sign up to War Thunder, if you don't already play, it will give you a free tank or a free plane from whichever nation you choose to play first. And I think it gives me some bonus. I don't know exactly what, because as I said, I don't really play it that much. But without further ado, quick little rundown. Differences: you've got 3 different game modes: arcade, very World of Tanksy, realistic battle. You have to spot your opponent physically. Don't rely on the game to spot it for you. You don't get any help there. And then you get simulator battles, the most realistic. You just get your commander's view from the cupola, or the gunner's view when you switch into the gunnery mode, and that becomes very difficult. Furthermore, one thing I did forget on all the methods is you get your shell's trajectory actually fires like that. So unlike World of Tanks, you see a tank in the distance and you just put your cursor on it and fire, and the shell goes there. In War Thunder, your shell will fall massively short because you've got to elevate your gun to fire in order to hit it. Airplanes, they're quite good fun as well if you're into that. I kind of like it every now and then for a little bit of a break, but I'm more of a tank man myself, especially because I find identifying tiny little dots on the screen at a distance when I'm flying a plane, I find that quite difficult and a bit too much like hard work. The boats, I've only played a little bit of. I'm not going to really make any comment on those. What I will say though is I do like the graphics as well. I think the graphics for me feel a little bit realer than in World of Tanks. World of Tanks can sometimes feel a bit cartoony, but as you can see, this Stug here has had a good amount of detail put into it with all the little bits on. You've got mud, you've got rust patterns, you've got the chains dangling off at the back. So I do quite like it in that aspect. Another thing I quite like as well is if you drive something like the Gaz AAA here, if you drive that at full speed into a tree, you will damage your car and kill your driver and the passenger in the front as well. So that's quite good fun. Anyway, I will put another video as well, which will be a little bit of gameplay, I hope. And if you like the War Thunder videos, please let me know. I'll make some more. As I said, do recommend it. It's pretty good fun. It's different to World of Tanks. It makes a nice break, and the community doesn't seem quite so salty at times. So anyway, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave any comments down below, and look forward to seeing you again soon.